We are now about 33 minutes away from the docking of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft to the International Space Station. Following initial contact and capture of the Soyuz MS-26 to the International Space Station, there will be a period of a couple of minutes to allow the relative motion between the Soyuz and the International Space Station to dampen out on the docking interface between the two.
2200, range 5.2 kilometers, rate 8.4 meters per second, and closing. Station is in the center of the Skava. Burlock 1 reporting.
And once that relative motion dampens out, the forward docking probe on Soyuz will begin to retract. Hooks will then close, and we will have a hard meet between Soyuz and the station. We are expecting to see that hook closure around 2:40 p.m. Central, about 7 minutes after initial docking. After that hard mate, there will be a period of standard leak checks to ensure we have an airtight seal between Soyuz and the International Space Station before we open up the hatches. Hatch opening is currently targeted for about 4:50 p.m. Central, 5:50 p.m. Eastern. Soyuz is now about 4.5 kilometers away from the International Space Station and closing in at a rate of approximately 8.6 meters per second. Coming up in about 4 minutes, we will see that impulse 4 burn. That impulse burn will be a short burst to further fine-tune the spacecraft's path to the International Space Station, and there are 6 total impulse burns planned.
Time 22:00. 4.1 kilometers range rate 8.6 meters per second, and closing. Station is in the West Kavakil Center, Burlock 1. Copy all.
And if you look to the center of that crosshair view on your screen, you can start to see the outline of the International Space Station making its appearance as the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft carrying NASA astronaut Don Pettit and Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Ivan Wagner continue to close in on the International Space Station. They're now about 3.8 kilometers away, closing in at a rate of about 8.8 meters per second. And now on your screen, you can see the onboard control panel. This is basically the screen that the Soyuz crew is seeing. And on that left upper side, you can see that crosshair camera that we were previously seeing. And you can now really see the International Space Station coming into view. So this view on your screen is what the crew aboard Soyuz are seeing. And again, that crew is NASA astronaut Don Pettit and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin and Ivan Wagner.
20, range 2.9 kilometers, range rate 8.9 meters per second, and closing. ISS and the VSCO Center. Copy.
And the Soyuz spacecraft is now less than 2.7 kilometers away from the International Space Station and continuing to close in. In just about a minute from now, we should see that Impulse 4 burn take place.
Maneuver started. Station is shifting by 1 hour. Copy.
And that Impulse 4 burn is now underway.
Confirm 220608.
Again, those impulse burns are just short bursts.
Over 10 seconds, so we made 3 meters.
To fine tune.
44, GK 220623. Duration 5. Magnitude 553, and the duration is 15 seconds. Copy. We're observing the reverse maneuver.
And there you can see the International Space Station coming back into view
20725
of that crosshair camera.
1,046 meters, rate 4.5 meters per second, and closing. ISS is in the center of VSCO. Copy.
And we just had that Impulse 4 burn complete. Again, those impulse burns.
Yes, we have good video.
And those impulse burns are just short bursts to fine tune the spacecraft's path. We will have 2 additional impulse burns to complete the series. The Impulse 5 burn is scheduled for about 2:09 p.m. Central, 3:09 p.m. Eastern, and the final Impulse 6 burn is scheduled for around 2:12 p.m. Central, 3:12 p.m. Eastern. The Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft is now about 1.4 kilometers away from the International Space Station and closing in at a rate of about 4.1 meters per second. And we should see that Impulse 5 burn in about a minute from now. And we are about 24 minutes away from today's planned docking.
Time 220920, range 1190 meters, range rate 3 meters per second. and closing. Station is in the center of Escavico.
And we are now about 23 minutes away from today's planned docking. The Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft is about 1 kilometer away from the International Space Station and continuing to close in at a rate of about 3.6 meters per second. And about 5 minutes from now, Soyuz will get within range of the space station and then go into its Flyaround. We are expecting that Flyaround to take place around 2:15 p.m. Central, 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time today. And that Flyaround will start at a range of about 400 meters with an angle of 54 degrees.
We see rate dampen.
And we just heard confirmation that Impulse 5 burn is underway.
Range 950 meters, range rate 2.7 meters per second, Burlock 1 reporting. Copy.
And there on your screen now, you can see a live look of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft as it closes in on the International Space Station. This view is coming from some of those external cameras aboard the International Space Station. And you can see as it conducts that Impulse 5 burn, you saw a couple of short bursts there from its engine. And again, that Impulse 5 burn is part of a series of 6 burns to further fine-tune the spacecraft's path to the International Space Station. And Soyuz and the International Space Station are currently flying over the northeast coast of Brazil.
22:11:30. Range 790 meters. Range rate 2.4 meters per second and closing.
And the Soyuz spacecraft that you're currently seeing on your screen is about 250 meters away from the International Space Station and closing in at a rate of about 2.4 meters per second. And we have confirmation that the Impulse 5 burn was complete and it was a good burn. So there's just one burn left in that series of impulse burns. And we're expecting that in just a minute. Shortly after that, Soyuz will then conduct its Flyaround. Again, that Flyaround is scheduled for about 3 minutes from now at 2:15 p.m. Central, 3:15 p.m. Eastern, once the Soyuz spacecraft is about 400 meters away from the International Space Station.
Start of retrograde burn.
And that Impulse 6 burn is now underway.
Observe braking, range 630 meters, range rate 1.55 and closing.
And that Impulse 6 burn is now complete. We will be standing by for the Flyaround taking place in about 3 minutes. And the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft is now less than 400 meters away from the International Space Station and continuing to close in, now at a rate of about 1.6 meters per second. Following that Flyaround, the spacecraft will align with the docking port on the Rossviet module. And once aligned, the vehicle will then go into a period of station keeping.
550 meters, rate 1.6 meters per second and closing. Copy.
During that period of station keeping, it will allow flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov outside of Moscow to analyze the alignment between the forward docking probe on Soyuz and the docking port on the space station's Rossviet module.
Yes. We confirm.
The Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft is now less than 500 meters away from the International Space Station, and once it gets to that 400-meter mark, it will begin its Flyaround. And on your screen, you continue to see a view of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft captured from cameras on the International Space Station. And the vehicles are approaching the west coast of Africa. We are less than 30 seconds away from that fly around, and the vehicle is about 425 meters away from the International Space Station.
Range 402 meters. Range rate 1.33 and closing. Copy.
And the Soyuz spacecraft is now about 370 meters away and will begin that fly around. Again, that fly around is going to be conducted at an angle of 54 degrees. And we have confirmation that the fly around has started. And following the fly around, the spacecraft will align.
With the AGE mode.
And following the fly around, the spacecraft will align with the docking port on the Rossviet module, which will be the Soyuz MS-26's destination for today.
Is it better? Much better. Keep it as is. Copy all. Keeping it the way it is now.
And this Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft is continuing to conduct its fly around.
30.14 meters, 0.73 is the range rate. We're continuing fly around, targeting the designated docking port. Yes, go ahead. Continue the fly around process. Copy.
And the Soyuz spacecraft is now less than 300 meters away and closing in at a rate of about 0.6 meters per second. Coming up in less than 3 minutes, we will see the station keeping taking place. And this begins after the fly around and once the spacecraft is aligned with the docking port on the Rossviet module.
Range 270 meters, range rate 058, approaching. Copy.
And the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft continues to conduct its fly around. It is about 250 meters away from the International Space Station.
Range rate 042, 0.42, approaching.
And the spacecraft today will bring NASA astronaut Don Pettit and his crewmates, Roscosmos crewmates Alexei Ovchenin and Ivan Wagner, to the International Space Station. And once they dock and the hatches are open, the station population will temporarily increase from 9 to 12 people. And we are about a minute away from transitioning to that station keeping from the fly around. And then after the station keeping and the Russian mission control team is happy with the alignment, they will begin the final approach. Final approach is currently scheduled for about 2.5 minutes from now.
Range 227 meters, 0.27, range rate, approaching. We have the...
And you are seeing some of those thruster firings from Soyuz as it crosses or flies over the coast of Moscow and continues to approach the coast of Morocco and continues to approach the International Space Station.
We see Cygnus. Yes, that's it. That's the one. You see the Prichalin course. Range is 215. 0.21 is the range rate approaching. We are practically at the axis of the designated docking port of MRM-1. Please monitor K-15. We have confirmed the Prichal signal.
And there you see the crosshair view from the Soyuz MS-26. You can see it is working to align itself with the docking probe on the Rassvet module.
207 meters, 0.12 range rate. We have cone station keeping. We're expecting cone station keeping.
And the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft is now working to align itself with the docking port on the Rassvet module, and we
Yes, we see station keeping in the cone. We confirm station keeping.
And once aligned, the vehicle will then briefly go into station keeping.
We are activating the headlight.
And the vehicle is currently about 200 meters away from the International Space Station.
21:26 is the time when I activated the headlight. Range 200 meters. Range rate is 0.1 approaching. We have Prichal. Okay. Monitor the final approach process. Yes, we confirm final approach, Prichal. I see that the range is decreasing, and we see the increase of the range rate approaching the station. Copy.
And the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft has finished its period of station keeping and is now beginning the final approach to the International Space Station, reinitiating that docking sequence. Again, Soyuz uses an automated radar-based system called CORS to dock to the International Space Station.
Range is 175 meters. 0.83 is range rate approaching the station.
And the active portion of the CORS system is on Soyuz with the passive equipment on the station. And between the active portion on Soyuz, it sends a radio beacon signal to the passive portion on the space station that updates information on the range and rate of closure. And the vehicle is now about 150 meters away from the International Space Station and continuing to close in.
Range 135 meters. Range rate is 0.79 approaching the station.
We are just moments away from that docking of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft, and just 3 hours ago at 11:23 a.m. Central, 12:23 p.m. Eastern, the Soyuz lifted off atop its Soyuz 2.1A booster, propelling it into orbit.
Fine tuning. Yes, we see the blinking in the video. If it's not too much trouble, then could you adjust the AGC mode? Yes, we also see the blinking in our video.
And the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft and the International Space Station are currently flying east of Casablanca as the Soyuz closes in on its final approach to the International Space Station. Following initial contact and capture, there will be a period of just a couple of minutes to allow the relative motion between Soyuz and the International Space Station to dampen out on the docking interface that is between the two.
It's not working. Brulak one speaking, it's not working to get a better video quality than we have now. Copy.
And the vehicle is now
8 meters,
less than 80 meters.
0.37 approaching the station.
Так, ну через 3 минуты где-то в тень будем ходить.
There will be an eclipse in about 3 minutes.
Да, я тоже так думаю.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too.
And the vehicle is about 69 meters away from the International Space Station, closing in at a rate of about 0.3 meters per second. The rate of closure once it gets to contact and capture will be about 1/10 of a meter per second. Again, the docking
60 meters. Range rate is 017. Approaching the station. The crosshairs are aligned.
Again, the docking of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft it'll dock to the Rosviet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station.
Так, ожидаем с вами включения.
The vehicle is now about 47 meters away.
Assess VP activation. We confirm assess VP readiness. The probe is extended.
Принял.
Copy. Range is 43 meters. The range rate is 019. Approaching the station. The crosshairs are aligned. About half its cell is the deviation from the electronic crosshairs positioning.
And there on your screen, you can see the crosshair view from the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft looking onto the International Space Station. And in the bottom left, you can see that range and rate of closure.
Range is 40 meters. The range rate is 015. Approaching the station. Deviation between the sky center and the crosshairs of the target are about 1 cell.
And there on your screen, you can see the view from the International Space Station looking to the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft as it continues to make its final approach in for docking. And on the front of the Soyuz spacecraft, you can see that docking probe. Once the contact and capture takes place and we allow the relative motion to dampen out, that docking probe, the forward docking probe on the Soyuz that you see, will begin to retract, and then hooks will close and we will have what is known as a hard mate between Soyuz and station.
Meters, range rate inaudible. Approaching the station. Crosshairs are aligned. It does match the center of the OSK.
And the Soyuz spacecraft is now 30 meters away, closing in at a rate of 0.13 meters per second. At the time of contact and capture, that will be about 1/10 of a meter per second. And you could hear some conversations between the crew on the Soyuz and teams on the ground as they were aligning the crosshair camera.
Try to use the HC mode. Yes, go ahead. Should we leave this video as is?
Оставляю уже.
Yes, leave it as is.
Оставляю?
Should we leave it?
Да, оставляем.
Yes, go ahead and leave it as is. Copy.
Есть база R. Есть база R.
Yes, we confirm inaudible. We have Baza Air confirmed. Copy. We have visually crossed 20 meters. The crosshairs are aligned. The target crosshairs are matching the crosshairs on the spacecraft.
And the International Space Station is in a brief but expected handover period, but we are continuing to get these views from the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft. And they were confirming that the spacecraft was aligned with the docking target on the International Space Station, which you can see in that crosshair view on your screen. And the vehicle is now about 15 meters away from the International Space Station, closing in at a rate of 0.11 meters per second.
Range is 15 meters. Range rate is 011, approaching the station. Range is 10 meters. Crosshairs of the target are matching the electronic crosshairs on Vyaska.
And the Soyuz is now 10 meters away and continuing to close in on its docking target.
Crosshairs of the target are aligned and aligned with the center of Vyaska.
And we are now standing by for contact and capture.
Visually, we see 3 meters. We're expecting contact. We confirm contact. We have capture 2232 capture.
And we have confirmation of contact and capture of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft to the International Space Station at 2:32 p.m. Central, 3:32 p.m. Eastern, as the space station and Soyuz were flying 260 statute miles over central Ukraine.
And give us the spherical tank readings and the propellant.
And the forward docking probe on the Soyuz spacecraft is now beginning to retract. After that retraction is complete, hooks will begin to close.
185. Propellant 493.
Принято.
Copy.
Работаем по 57 странице.
Work for page 57.
Принято. Работаем по...
Copy. We're working for page 57.
Да, отключаем фару, закрываем РПВ-1 и запускаем...
You can turn off the headlight. Sending command R7. Sending command R7. Turning off the headlight. That would be C1818. Turned it off. Close RPV1. We're going to start the one-time monitoring sequence. Started.
Ваня, мне время скажи.
Could you tell us the time? 22:34:01 is the time.
И первые значения какие выдали?
And what are the first? What are your initial readings? Pressure in 805, 831 in the bill, 860 inaudible.
Принято.
Copy.
Следующий замер через 5 минут.
Loud interference, inaudible comments.
Контролируйте стягивание объектов.
Please monitor the vehicle retraction. MCC Moscow, what are your instructions about the video?
Ну, его можно заключить.
Well, you can respond to inaudible. So can we turn it off?
Да.
Yes. Yes, you can. Copy. Turning off the video. The video is off.
And you heard some conversation between the Soyuz crew and the ground controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov outside of Moscow, which you currently see a view of on your screen as the Soyuz docking probe continues to retract, and we stand by for the hooks to close to form that hard mate.
Query. Copy. We have
And we have confirmation that the hooks on the Soyuz are now driving.
the 17 message is no longer eliminated. We're waiting for the D15 to be eliminated. I confirm.
Again, we saw the docking of the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft earlier, just a few minutes ago.
Eliminated. It's D15.
At 2:32 p.m. Central, and now we have confirmation that the hooks have closed, forming a hard mate between Soyuz and the International Space Station.
D13 is not on. We're waiting for the gas 17 to be eliminated as in hooks retracted. Copy. I confirm. Yes, I confirm working for 58.
And with that hard mate, there will then be a period of some leak checks and pressurization of the vestibule before opening the hatches to welcome the newly arrived Soyuz MS-26 crew to the International Space Station later today.
Бурлак-2, СУПа Москвы. Вань, скажи.
Inaudible.
И там потом...
Could you give us the next measurement? Five-minute measurement. 8 8:05 in SS in SA 831 in the bill. 860 in the instrumentation compartment. August 17, Latin Hicks retracted is eliminated. We're waiting. The SM probe retracted is D11, expecting that to be eliminated shortly. We confirmed the SM probe is retracted. Assess the PEM mode complete. We have confirmation. We're ready to send command D8 assess the PEM to turn off assess the PEM one more time. Could you repeat one more time? Turn off assess the PEM. Copy. We're sending D8. I turned it off. D11 is no longer illuminated. D15 is no longer eliminated. Watching Hicks are not eliminated. That is there 17. D11 is not eliminated. SSVP mode complete is not eliminated. We're going to record, save the recording. So, info out 1, 18, 8, input 2, file saved, 000, log. Giving the names of the files that the log recordings were saved in. Copy.
Алексей, там с вами с Байконура хотят поговорить.
Alexei, they want to talk to you from Baikonur. We're ready.
Экипаж, Байконур на связи.
Crew members, Baikonur speaking. We can barely hear you.
Сейчас слышно лучше?
Is this better now? A little bit better.
Мы рады за вас.
We're very happy for you.
С мягкой стыковкой.
We're congratulating you on the soft docking. Hi to everyone. Have a successful flight, complete all the science objectives, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again on the ground. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо.
Thank you.
Так, 15 минут у нас.
15 minutes at 49 minutes.
49 минут будет.
Speaking simultaneously. Maybe we can move on to page 5959 for now.
Да, можно отключить
Yes.
обогрев антенн.
You can turn off the antenna heater.
До момента Т-сепки плюс 20.
You can execute steps up to time of temperature plus 20. Okay, copy. We're sending command bit 2.
And you just heard some congratulatory words from Roscosmos officials down in Baikonur, where the Soyuz 2.1A booster launched about 3 hours and 20 minutes ago. And following that launch earlier today at 11:23 a.m. Central Time, 12:23 p.m. Eastern Time from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, That set the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft up for its short two-orbit journey, and NASA astronaut Don Pettit and Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Ivan Wagner have now safely docked to the International Space Station's Rossviet module this afternoon at 2:32 p.m. Central, 3:32 p.m. Eastern, as the International Space Station and the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft were traveling over central Ukraine. Following a series of standard leak checks, the Expedition 71 crew currently on board the space station will open the hatches between the orbiting laboratory and Soyuz to greet Pettit, Ovchinin, and Wagner. NASA coverage of hatch opening and welcoming remarks will begin at 4:30 p.m. Central, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, with that hatch opening planned to take place around 4:50 p.m. Central, 5:50 p.m. Eastern. Until then, this is Mission Control Houston.